Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Wednesday. You know, if it's Wednesday, noon Pacific Daylight Time, it must be time for Naked with Dr. Money. And as I've shared, Naked with Dr. Money is my opportunity to share the behind scenes view of how I address my mind, body, and soul while building this wellness organization that I'm telling you is aimed at helping you manage your mind, body, and soul. So today, as each week promises, I have another exciting guest, and you know what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about mindset. I'll ask my guest today if she believes mindset is the result of nature, nurture, or a little bit of both. We'll talk about particular motivations that she's been able to execute as a result of her mindset and also manifestations. My guest today, Andrea Jackson, I refer to as my sis. She has been a sister friend for at least a couple decades at this point, and we still keep counting. I just had a wonderful opportunity to visit Miss Andrea in Washington, D.C. on my way to Jamaica. I'm coming to you guys from Kingston, Jamaica. And so, Andrea, we had such a great time. I was a little bit fighting a little bit of pain, but she took care of me and we had a very special time. So, without any further ado, I am going to introduce you all to my friend and my sis, Andrea Jackson. Hey there, beautiful. So, how are you today?
Beautiful. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So, thank you for joining me. I'm so happy we could get this done.
What a blessed introduction. I have to say, for 2 decades, you had been my sister as well. And I just have really appreciated you and all the gifts that you give to me and to everyone, and especially with mindset, because you keep yours on a very high level.
Man, well, we know that it's not because it hasn't been challenged, boy. I
Yep.
guess I say, it's just with those things, right? We decide where it is we think we want to go, and you have to have determination to get there, especially when it is that it's not what seems to be the common conversation. And certainly sometimes you wonder, I know I did along the journey, like, why are my thoughts and interests so over here, where a lot of my friends that those interests weren't shared, if you will. But it was because it's my path, and so I think that once you get far enough along the journey, then you realize kind of, oh, of course that made sense because I wanted to do this, and so that was a little bit different. I had to go a different path.
Yeah, I understand. It's really interesting because I think mindset can be on a whole lot of levels. It can be nurture, it can be nature, and it can be shifted. So it's mindset is not necessarily something that is linear. You
Mhm.
can have someone, for example, who was born with the perfect circumstances and their mindset is on a very high level, and you change those circumstances, and that's when it really can challenge you. And the opposite can be
Absolutely.
true as well. So I
Absolutely.
don't think it's necessarily linear.
Right. So when do you think, if you were reflecting back, when do you think you first became aware that you had a mindset, a certain way that you approached, your everyday and your experiences?
Well, I'll go back before I was even conscious because I think of myself as a baby coming into the world and my parents telling me that they did not have to buy a thing. So I think that there was a lot of concern that they had as a young couple. Well, they were older in those days, but to me, they were really young, trying to figure out how to sustain a child. And I think that we come with the mindset that we are taken care of. I
Mhm.
think as unconscious children, we have that consciousness of something bigger and something greater, and everything is provided. I think as a young person, I kind of lost that sense for some reason, even though I had a lot of gifts and talented people around me, very educated people around me. I think as a young person, that mindset was a struggle. So I have been working on that all my life, even though born into so-called privilege because of the divine, giving everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting because that's where I think it really is. It's about conscious effort. And I think I recall being determined in my own way. So I would say I remember having a certain nature about myself that seemed to be comfortable in its role of leadership. But I also was socialized to, you know, tone it down. And so I think that there were definitely points along the journey that my inner knowing, or what would have been my confidence, was suppressed because I had been being suppressed. And then there was a point that you start suppressing your own self, right? And you're right, it has been a lifelong journey of work, because, and thankfully I've been able to be around leaders and be able to read the biographies of leaders, of top performers. And what I noticed, that those who gain proficiency in their technical area of pursuit, you also need the equal mental coaching, the emotional intelligence, the other emotional fortitude about, your will to do, because otherwise you still can't be a peak performer. And so I think that that made me be aware, conscious of, I was deliberately doing, and I say I've probably put in, hundreds of thousands of hours of work around building a mindset, around, studying and finding new ways. And so always, something else. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm in
Yeah.
the service industry, and I've been choosing to wait tables because I really enjoy that. Is that my or is that me? That is me. I'm sorry.
No worries.
um, I've been choosing to serve and choosing to wait tables, and it is such a joy to do so. But there is a particular mindset that a lot of people in my profession have. And, gratitude is something that I believe changes mindset instantaneously. And you asked a question before, and I wanted to kind of follow up on that. I had a party that I served at work a month ago, and they were absolutely wonderful people. They gave a tremendous gratuity, and on top of that gratuity, they gave us a tremendous gratuity, which was really wonderful. And lately, I've been working a lot with gratitude. And I got a text from the events coordinator that is at our restaurant. And she said, "There's a note for you from the host." And I couldn't figure out what she was talking about. And I realized, who it was. It was this woman named Patty. And I open up the card, and there is money, more money, and it's just interesting how the flow kind of keeps going. That it's not like, oh, you work from 9 to 5, this is how much you make. Or you're in the service industry, you have this many covers or this many guests, and this is how much you make based upon that. It is mindset, like we were talking about, is not linear at all. It doesn't know any boundaries. It doesn't know time. Mm-hmm. People think that other people are responsible for their affluence or their abundance. But it really is about mindset. And I'm not saying, oh my God, I have this fabulous mindset, because it is work. It absolutely is work all the time. But abundance is constantly flowing. It doesn't matter what is linear. It's a constant. It's always abundant.
I find that for years, I really didn't understand a couple things. One, I wasn't able to settle myself to meditate. I couldn't really get there. But now that I have, I'm like, oh my gosh, what a joy, what a blessing. And then the other thing, it was, I didn't understand why they would refer to yoga as a practice. But as I've been building this company and then really sharing what I do, I realized that I had methodologies or practices, approaches to how I would go about things. And I found that of late, really maintaining a daily practice, I said, oh my gosh, it's really like all of those other things that you have that are daily, that you really have to build that muscle daily. And I now really understand why, because there's so much happening around you. There's so many energies, there's so many things that could really take you off your game if you don't if you haven't set your intention.
Yep.
And if you don't have confidence in those intentions that you set, we walk out the door and you can be taken away into the tidal wave of just stuff,
Yeah.
and you don't realize it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
true. And I think for me personally, um, intention is very much about a state of being more than it is on the thing itself, if that makes sense. Like, for example, I think you and I talked about this when you were here in DC, that I had a great desire to live on Palm Island, which is right off of South Beach. And that was like my huge desire inside. I was like, I want to live here. I would drive up to the gate. I would rollerblade up to the gate. I would walk up to the gate. That was my huge desire to live there. But it wasn't until my intention was to have a place to live. My intention was that, and it just kind of converged that I lived there, if that makes sense. So sometimes for me personally, what I want is not necessarily given in the moment. It's more about what I need, because all needs are met.
Mm-hmm.
All needs met. And, Michael Beckwith talks about that all the time, all needs met. We were talking about the car.
Yes.
I manifested, I had this car, a photo of a car on my laptop, and I just made that kind of like my screensaver. And it wasn't until my car was totaled, when I was driving down a street where the street ended all of a sudden. And it's like, it was dark and it was night. And I was like, what just happened here? But they just didn't complete the street. It wasn't until my car was totaled and my needs were that I needed a new car, that particular model that I was interested in, that need was met, but not just because, oh, boom, here it is. I want this silver BMW. It was more like my car was totaled, and that was the need that was met. So that's just my own experience.
Yeah, I find myself, I have to be careful because I think that sometimes when you state something, I have said, I've had to be very clear about it. It's and.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that one and the one that I have so that we don't have to replace one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Then,
that
because
is real.
I have had the experience of manifesting a replacement, and that then means that what you have has to, come into some type of disrepair or malfunction for the replacement. So it's like, no, these days I love on my baby. I love you, baby. Stay good. We are going to add to the family.
Clarity is key. Clarity is key.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I think that, and I love that you reference Michael Beckwith. I also am a fan of a lot of his work and follow his messaging. But the idea of needs met, because I think a lot of times people feel, what does that really mean? If my needs are met, why then could I be experiencing lack? And I think that what is missing in that understanding oftentimes is where we are at this particular moment had everything to do with thoughts, in the past. So if it is that you want to experience a new tomorrow, you got to have some new thoughts. You've got to set some new intentions. You've got to set some new desires. Because if you don't have a desire, even if it's not a need per se, it could be a want, it's a desire. You still have to say what you want. Because to me, I feel that the energy has no action, nothing to meet if you haven't made any declarations, which is why I'm such a fan of vision boards, really kind of taking time with yourself and thinking about, where are you at this moment? What is it that you'd like to see? I had that experience happen, I think, in 2020, when COVID happened and everything was shut down, and I found myself, Barbados had, advertised that they were giving away year visas. And I remember saying, I want to go someplace that, I could be on an island. I don't want to go to Barbados, but I want to, back to Barbados. I don't want to go back to Barbados, but you know what I mean? So it was like that seed was planted. Had no idea it was going to manifest with a girlfriend. When I was supposed to be on my way to the Carolinas, everything was shut down. So another girlfriend happened to left the West Coast. She was in New York visiting her, and I was in New York. And so she's like, "No, I'm going to Jamaica for a month." So I'm like, "Can I go?" Wow. And doing that allowed me to get back to Jamaica, but to stay for a longer period of time. I didn't know if I could handle being in Jamaica for a month. And that trip turned into 3 months, but it flipped my business model thinking as well, because I kept thinking that I had to build my wellness resorts in the US and then expand to buying islands. I didn't think that I could start from the islands in terms of building the resorts. And this is a much better, plan. This is much more fulfilling to my spirit. I'm in my happy place. And so I can authentically bring forward that happiness and joy, but also the healing, because I'm able to live it, right? But it's interesting how, I guess, those desires, and it was just getting honest with my desires, like, I can do this. I want to do this. I'm ready for this. And bam,
Yeah.
there you have it.
True.
Right?
That's so true.
Yeah. And the whole shift even into the 420 branding and all of that stuff, that was literally on my vision board, that I was going to get into medicinal cannabis and put it on my January. And by October, it was manifest,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I really am a believer of working on the mindset, but I also think that it's important to detox, because sometimes we have old thoughts and hurts and traumas that are hidden, and they too are impacting at a subconscious level, what is manifesting in our lives. Have you had any occasion to kind of process personal trauma that you found that your mindset was useful in assisting you, or you even had to develop more skills in the process of addressing that type of trauma?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I'm going to shift this back because I messed this up. I completely agree with everything that you just. Wow, going back to like the vision board. I think sometimes like visualizing that want can help to release whatever trauma is there, or belief about what it is that you deserve or what it is that you want. Seeing that, I think sometimes we don't realize those underlying things, those underlying beliefs. Like when you see on a vision board something beautiful or something possible, the that we have that's buried below that you were talking about, and sometimes be uprooted. For me, the trauma situation has been family. You know, that is something that I've had to work on, and I still have to work on. And we had a wonderful Father's Day yesterday, and it was so amazing to be with everybody. But for me, in order to sit peacefully and calmly and without, the mind running with family, like, what do they think about me? What is going, has been years of work. And, yesterday I actually was sitting in this wonderful Father's Day brunch and just looking out the window and being okay with looking out the window and not having to entertain, not having to be anything for anybody, but just present. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that mindset of presence helps to alleviate a lot of the past discomforts, being in the present moment.
That is so valuable what you said, because I realized I was doing an exercise in my own mind because I was thinking about a situation that I had experienced. And what I realized is that that's the memory. Our memories trip us up, because when you're aiming to set a new intention and go forward, that little memory can nudge you and cause you to revisit a place that you've already left. And so it is important to be able to do what you did. I applaud you for finding your peace and just centering yourself and just saying, hey, I'm here. And that's all that's required in this moment, is to just be here. And so what can I enjoy while I'm here? I don't have to do anything extra than be. And I think that would be valuable. A lot of times families have different dynamics. In fact, that's some of the work that we're planning to do, is family reconciliations. I have, intentions with my own family members that, we're on different pages, right? And hoping that we can find a way to bridge some of the gaps, because the thing is that you only have whatever seasons you have. And, it goes by. And so you're really missing the most important things, oftentimes being caught up in things that really, at the end of the day, really don't matter. It really, and it's already over. There's nothing you can do about it. That was yesterday. So what, right? It's kind of like that whole landmark stuff where it's like something happened. You made it mean something. Now you're behaving like, no, something
And the
happened.
same with epigenetics.
Right.
People are so caught up in DNA and thinking, oh, my family's history is this, or my DNA is that. And now science is coming to realize about epigenetics. It can be mental, it can be physical, cellular, the whole memory thing.
Absolutely. So the best thing that you could do for yourself and for everyone around you is live your best life each day, right? Set an intention to have a fabulous day, because that's really all you got. That's all you got control of in that moment. And if you're blessed to close your eyes and wake up again and get to do it again, still set a new intention, for the outcome.
You just said about closing your eyes, and you were talking about meditation before. That closing the eyes and taking that quick moment with meditation can be the reset as well.
It can. It's so funny you said that. So I've been healing from this nerve injury, and it's really caused me to have to calm down. I couldn't work. I couldn't be too engaged. But I had attended an event last week with one of my colleagues and mentees, entrepreneur that I've been working with. And so he was like, well, you're going to come with me. And I said, I'm literally here to be your coach. I'm not going to be engaged. Of course, there were some opportunities that I did have to slightly engage in, but I'm just going to be here. And it was so fantastic, Andrea, because like you said, I got to float and just give. I said, I'm just going to be on giving love mission. And all I did was give love to the people working, the security, just walking around giving love. Those people had so much fun with me.
I know. Yes. It was so needed.
They were just, it was like everybody was just like, it was like a Dr. Money Love Fest.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of why this self-love and why this is so important, and you just saw them light up, just standing to be present with each person. Oftentimes we get, you're in the hustle and bustle. Put the phone, put the gadget down. Be present to the human beings who are in your midst. Acknowledge them. Take a moment. It's such a gift. And the funny thing is, it's not even about the gift that you're giving them. It's the gift that they're returning to you. That part. Yeah, that part.
Because that's the gift that you're giving to yourself too. Your
Self-love,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So what I realized is, as I became really determined about what I wanted to experience on my daily journey, like I realized a week ago, I was doing the work that I've been doing and discovered that I had moved into the love vibration. And that's a high vibration. And I'm so happy and honored to be there. It's like, oh my God, this is where I am. So you mean I get to be here and go forward, the rest of my tomorrows from this place with the things that I know and the things that how I know to be. It's like, wow, that is absolutely heaven right now.
That is heaven.
That is right now. Absolutely. And it's just, sometimes you go, well, how did I? And it's like, well, it was the work, it was building the muscle along the way. And then it's recognizing that it's a daily practice because it is really daily.
It is. And there's an easy one. I think that I mentioned when I saw you last about Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian practice, a Hawaiian prayer that is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Well, you can literally do part of that, I love you, thank you, in those moments of stress. I love you, thank you is very much helpful in that immediate reset, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
When you're feeling like someone is coming up against you or you're coming up against yourself or, the stress, and it always is about what you feel about yourself, but I love you. Thank you. I love you.
Oh, I love that one. I love you. Thank you. That feels so good. And the other aha that I had was I remember understanding the distinction between how fear and faith operates. That has been really, a rudder for me, hanging on to faith and recognizing when I've allowed fear to intercept the faith. But what I didn't realize is that fear and love works the same way. Just had that kind of bubble up clarity. And so with that in mind, that has become a new tool for me as well when I'm standing in love, because if it is that something bubbles up that doesn't appear to be love, then I can go, okay, no, that's not what I want. Because love wouldn't be afraid. Love just would be.
Right.
And
it's always, not, I shouldn't say always, but humanly, it's going to come up. I think that that's like a belief sometimes when you're a metaphysician or spiritual practitioner or whatever. It's like, oh no, you can come back from the mountain. You can come back from the forest and all your meditation and get in traffic and it's going to come up, but it's the how that you're mentioning, the how.
Right.
How to deal with it.
Yeah. And so I think that that's what's so important, reminding people. So what I did for Pascal last week is I said, well, we're going to try this exercise that I'm calling 420. Of course, since I'm on this whole 420 thing. Yeah. So I said, every 20 minutes, set your phone to give you a little alarm at 20 minutes. and then you do a 4-minute meditation. And that's going to be our 420. And so as he was, because he was engaging really at a different level at a conference for the first time, and I was really pushing him to make particular contacts, to step out of his comfort zone. And sometimes, you have a little anxiety, when you're doing that, but he saw quickly he was willing to be coached real time. And so as I gave him each pointer, he immediately adopted it, and he saw the outcome. But those moments, he was like, I'm so glad you gave me this idea, this kind of 420, because I said, go think about your daughter, go just imagine giving her a mental hug and see if that brings you some calm. And it worked, and it was like, oh my goodness, this is what we have to do. We have to do this to, I think, plant that hedge of love around us when we're out there in the environment. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Sometimes people will think, well, how the heck will I have the time to do all of that? But literally, we're on our phones for 4 minutes minimum every 20 minutes.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Exactly. It's so, and the thing is once you, like with anything else, as you begin to receive the benefits, no one has to convince you that part.
You're like, okay, I got, yeah.
It's like you start working out, and in the beginning it's hard to get that routine, but once you start getting in the groove and you start feeling the benefits, it's you keep going, right? Because even like I would always tell Sterling, let me work on the first part of my body that's the strongest so I can see some little results, because all I need to do is see one little muscle tone or something, and then I'm committed now.
It is a muscle. It is a muscle. Yes. And if you haven't even started the workout, you won't know the benefits. Right. So like you're saying, it was a struggle for him, for Pascal, right? To get into the habit, and it is a habit.
Yeah. Yeah. But all the better, just a fabulous experience, as a result of that. So I'm excited because I'm like, this is what it's all about, is helping people. What became very clear for me is that in part of my stand, I seem to, but of course, I've worked mostly in male dominated sectors of industries and with men. So it makes sense that I would understand not only the professional interest in how to coach and what it is they're looking technically, but also because of the mindset, being able to recognize that. And what I found is, as a result of really spending the time and raising Sterling and the relationship that we have, he has actually let me see how I can be valuable, with other men in their pursuits, because there's this emotional piece that no one spends, or very few people spend a lot of time addressing. So it's really a kind of an exciting kind of like, wow, all of these pieces really were meant to come together. And now they are, coming together. So who could be upset about that, right? It's like, get up with your love, joy, and happiness each day. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So what's going on now? What are you planning for next? Setting any new intentions? Working on any big things? Any transitions? What's next?
Well, I have taken these next 3 days, or these 3 days off. And so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I've been doing a lot of 6 days. And so I know this is like food. I'm going to 3 different restaurants in 3 different days that I have never been to before, to kind of stimulate, a different idea in a different neighborhood, in a different place. So for me, like the whole idea that I don't know who, Lisa Nichols or whoever, was like, put yourself in a museum, put yourself in a bank, put yourself, somewhere, put yourself physically in a different place that you want to be. If you want to be inspired by art, if you want to be inspired by finances. And for me, I'm in the food industry already. And it's kind of like, well, what are the different flavors? How are other people doing this? How are other people serving? So that's what I'm doing. And of course, the physical workout and the mental workout.
That's fabulous. Well, I can't wait to come back to DC. I had so much fun and I'm always dining. We had such a good time dining. Yes,
You know when?
yes. Yes. And so you and I are also going to be meeting up in London soon. So we need to
I
follow up.
know.
Yes.
I was just talking with somebody last night. They're like, when are you going? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's June already. Yeah.
Yes.
September
Yes.
is rolling up.
Yes, we are working on those details. So a lot of follow up, but thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Naked with Dr. Money. It's been a fabulous conversation and I appreciate your insights and sharing, your journey in dealing with, mindsets and motivation and your manifestations. And, it's really to me how we all contribute, right? By sharing a little bit of our experiences. Somebody out there may be inspired and gain a nugget or two that helps them shift a perspective. So,
well, I've gained more than a nugget or two by this conversation and by our friendship. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, I'll see you soon and take good care.
You too.
Thank you. Well, everyone, I want to thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Naked with Dr. Money. Remember, if it's Wednesday, noon Pacific Daylight Time, then it's time for Naked with Dr. Money. I hope that you'll take the time to be good to you. Give yourself a big old hug for me, and I'll see you next week. Be well. Signing off, Dr. Money.